All right, looks like we're live. Welcome back to the Tuesday live stream. I'm trying to get used to wearing headphones. These things ain't gonna stay. This ain't built to last. With the headphones. Um, I'm a condensed nonsense. So today, I want to talk about the idea of getting stuck. And a lot of times, the concept of getting stuck is something that you're able to unpack yourself. We're rolling out a service to help you um, cut through the nonsense and maybe get yourself back on the right path. But first order of business. Yeah, these headphones are coming off. First order of business, y'all. My name is Brian. My wife and I, Brandy, own a marketing company called I Sell Words. Right now, we have our hands in pretty much all aspects of marketing with the emphasis on video, but we also do some copywriting, ad creation, and things along those lines. We really want to get it back into the strategy piece because that's our strong point. So that ties to this. We're going to talk about getting unstuck. And specifically for business owners or aspiring business owners, it's a valid topic because there's nothing easy. The easiest part about starting a business is actually doing the work on a day to day basis. Um, but sometimes you reach these cliffs of indecision where you are standing on the cliff, looking over the precipice, and kind of figuring out what your next move is. And sometimes the decision is easy, and a lot of times it isn't. And sometimes you feel stuck between action and inaction. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, we're also here to answer marketing questions. So if you got any marketing questions, go ahead and hit me up in the comments. Make sure you leave a name. I may not always be able to see who's coming, who's on there. So um, a lot of times when it comes to specifically when you're starting your business, when you're planning this thing out, you're deciding on whether or not you're going to make the move or take the leap or whatever. Um, there's a couple of things that a lot of business owners or people that are considering it or people that are working at their jobs and kind of wanting to see what the options are. One thing they don't consider. A lot of times you do have the skill, you have the knowledge base, you may not have the skill set yet. And when you don't have the skill set, when I'm saying you don't have the skill set, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have a skill set to structure that knowledge around something that's going to make money for you, that's a very difficult thing and it feels pretty daunting. And a lot of times you end up getting trapped between the should I or shouldn't I kind of thing. Um, I'll reassure you, and I'm talking specifically to people who haven't started out on their business yet. You have the skill set. The reason why you get paid to do your job is because your company sees that you have this, you have the knowledge. The company pays because you have the knowledge to do what you do. We're talking about fine tuning your skill set, and that's something that you only get testing out the waters and actually starting a business and starting something small and working and building it up. So you get the skill set from actually jumping in the water and getting started. But that's where a lot of people, that's the first place a lot of people get stuck. Um, and it's something that Brandy and I've discussed, and it's something that I do a lot where I end up thinking too far ahead of the game. So if I'm coming up with a new service and I think it's a great idea and I know how to implement and have all the other tools in my toolbox to roll with that new service, I end up start thinking too far ahead of the game and start thinking about all the nuances and try to account for all the things that could possibly go wrong with it and accounting for those up front. And then by the time I do all that level of planning, I don't want to do it anymore. And that's a real thing. And it happens to people all the time. And so that's one of the challenging pieces of the just diving in and getting started with businesses. But also once you're starting out and running your business, that's one of those very difficult things. And it hits you real quick. Um, the challenge is learning how to go and make a decision off of not having all the information. And that's a hard thing for me. I'm pretty pragmatic and I try to think things through. And so one of the challenges I have is feeling like I'm making a good decision. Because it's one thing to make a good decision, but it's another thing to feel good about making the good decision. And I struggle with that sometimes, especially if I don't feel like I have all the knowledge available to me. I try to accumulate all this knowledge before I make a decision. And then by The time I've accumulated sufficient knowledge or knowledge that makes me feel comfortable, the opportunity has sailed. It's gone away. Um, One of these days, I'm gonna get on here and talk about how, in the early days of all the crypto stuff, I had opportunity to take an old computer that I had and turn it into a Bitcoin mining rig early in the game. And I decided, well, I know how to do that, or I know how to build a home theater PC. And now I got a home theater PC that I don't even use because I bought a Roku box and it covers all the features of that. But it was an example of I didn't feel like I had enough information about the play, and I knew how to do it, but I didn't have enough information about the play, and I held out to get more information. And by then, it was too late to take action. That happens pretty frequently in business. A lot of times, when we're faced with decisions about what the next step is and what the next move is really not a matter of having enough knowledge. It's being comfortable with going off what you know, because you're never going to have the complete and total understanding of the thing that you're working on. You're not going to know a lot of the nuances, especially when it comes to starting a business venture. You're not going to know the nuances of the business venture until you actually get your feet and hands dirty into the business venture. You can read all the books, you can watch all the YouTube videos you want to, and that stuff's important. But I found that there's more value in going back and doing the research after you get started, because now you have the working knowledge and some of the skill sets to actually apply the knowledge that you read in the book. There's plenty of audiobooks I bought, 5 or 6 years ago that I read and went through, and I thought they gave me a good understanding, but I didn't quite know until I got my hands dirty. And then once I got my hands into the actual work, I can get more value out of those books and videos and all the other stuff. It's just a matter of being confident enough to make a decision. And sometimes, 60% of the knowledge is good enough to make a sound decision. Sometimes 20% is, especially if the opportunity is really hot. A lot of times people want to be full, they want to know the ins and outs of everything before they actually dive in. And that ends up leading to that analysis by paralysis thing. One of the things is, y'all, and there's this concept called creative tension. And it's in this book by Peter Senge. If I can remember, I'll link it. But it's called The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. And it's an entire book about systems theory and a lot of other things, a lot of behavioral science-based things. But one of the things he talks about in there is creative tension. Creative tension is the gap between where things are and where you want them to be. And the creative tension is that gap in between of you dragging things where they are into where you want them to be and bringing them together. And a lot of times that getting stuck is really you sitting in creative tension. You don't get, you're stuck in that creative tension. You have an idea of where you want things to be and how you want things to be, but you know where they are. You have full knowledge of how they are, and you don't quite know how to get them to where they want to be, or you don't feel confident in starting to take the steps to get it. And that's where we're talking about with the stuck thing. That's why the best way I can describe it is being stuck. And a lot of times you can be stuck. We already said starting out a business. That's one sticking point that a lot of people never get over. They say, I have this skill or I have this talent for this thing, and I think I want to make it a business. And they keep finding excuses not to. They keep finding reasons not to actually take the action. And it's challenging because it puts you in a position where by the time you're ready to take that action, you're already on your back heels. And things aren't, the opportunity is kind of sliding by you, and now you're kind of in panic mode. So that's the first place people get stuck. Then you start a new business. And the next place people kind of get stuck is, okay, now that you've hung your shingle and the door is open, how do I niche down? Niching is scary. It is. Finding the segment of the market that you're going to serve that's going to pay you money, pay what you want to get paid, without arguing and fighting you on the price point is difficult, but it's very necessary. And a lot of times business owners really get caught up. And I know I did. I know specifically I did, and I still struggle with it. Get caught up in finding the niche to serve, finding your segment that you're going to serve. And you end up jumping between different products that meet different markets and never quite finding the right one because you're scared to, you might have you might have success in one instead of saying, okay, I'm gonna double down and focus on this one that I had success in. You're like, okay, I got great success here. So now let's open up this new thing and see. Instead of staying where you are and staying in that lane and mining all the gold that's in that mine, you're trying to start a new dig. You're trying to find a new place to dig. And so the niche and determining that niche and the right fit for your business is it's a journey. And it's where a lot of business owners get hung up. People stay perpetually in the mode of trying to serve everybody, and then they end up getting into a price war where they're bidding against themselves, and it becomes a big, gigantic race to the bottom. And the unfortunate side of that is you've ended up, you're competing against yourself on price, and the only person that ever loses in that competition is you. That's the challenge. You're competing against yourself on price, and the only person that ever loses is you. Nobody wins in that position. So, okay, analysis paralysis. Let's go through some of the comments. All right, yep. Analysis paralysis. That's exactly what it is, and that can be a detrimental thing, especially if you're a student where you just love to learn things. You get so addicted to the process of learning that you never get into the process of doing. And you're just kind of stuck there hovering in limbo. I overthink everything. That is the challenge that I struggle with every single day. I actually overthought coming down here and getting on the live stream because, we're swamped with work and we've had some car issues and things along those lines. And so I was sitting there overthinking the concept of the live stream. And it's been kind of a habit that I've gotten into on Tuesday afternoons. And I decided that I'm gonna just shut my brain off and jump on the stream. So the challenge is, how do you know the difference between having enough information to make a good decision and making a bad decision based on limited information? That one's tough. I feel like this. If you feel like you can be moderately successful, if you feel like the success is going to be, if you're going to experience success, but it's going to be kind of limited by the knowledge that you have, I still say that's enough knowledge to get started. Now, if you feel like you don't have enough knowledge to even be successful to get started, then you probably need to go back to the lab and think about it a little bit. That's the challenge, and that's the difficulty. It ain't easy. It's not an easy thing to wrap your head around. But if you feel like, if I get started and I don't know enough and I'm gonna screw this whole thing up, and you're scared of that because you don't feel like you know enough, then you probably need to do a little bit more research, a little bit more studying. But if you want to just jump into the game, if you feel like you can jump into it and have some limited success, I would say you could kind of take the plunge. Thank you. That's kind of how I view it, y'all. And so, understanding this and understanding that a lot of times the stuck thing is just kind of a mental hurdle that you got to work to get over. Let's talk about the process of getting yourself unstuck. All right. First of all, before I get into it, how many people out here who are listening right now are stuck between two decisions right now? And make sure you leave your name in the comments so I can see, because StreamYard doesn't pull everybody's name over into the comments for some reason. But that's the question. How many people out there are stuck between, starting a business or not starting a business, or launching a new product line or not launching a new product line? How many people out there currently are experiencing a level of stuck? And You can leave a comment, give me a like or whatever, and just let me know. Okay, Paula, you're stuck. All right. So um with being stuck, what are you stuck on? Is it, figuring out what service you want to offer? Are you figuring out who you want to serve? Um, let me know. Leave an answer and let me know. And maybe we can kind of parse it a little bit if you feel comfortable doing that. The process, how I got unstuck, because that was one of the biggest things. When I first started this marketing thing, I started out as a copywriter because I could write. I've written books for other people. Um, you know, I've written short stories, I've had poems published and things like that. I was a writer and I still am. I had a little blog that I'm trying to go back into. Okay, the process. All right, I'm gonna get into that in a second if you want to stick with me. So one of the things is I was stuck when I first started my marketing business because I was trying to be a copywriter and didn't really understand how to get my foot in the door as a copywriter because, to be quite honest with you, a lot of people don't know what a copywriter is. And a copywriter is a person that writes ads in marketing pieces. Sometimes they write websites, sometimes they write brochures, sometimes they write manuals, all the way up to, sometimes even like some copywriters can sit down and crank out a whole ghostwrite a whole book. And so there's a lot of elements that a copywriter can do. But more or less, it's the concept of making words that sell. And so that's where the business came from. That's where the business idea came from. Where I sell words. I sell words that sell. And I didn't quite know what to do with it. And my entire background was working with kids and families. But I had a very strong consultation background because that was the model that I used to supervise staff and employees. And so I use the knowledge of supervising staff and employees where I can kind of analyze where a person's progress is relative to where they want to be, give them some tips, check in with them, kind of coach them up, provide them pieces that they can use to develop themselves. If I have the knowledge, give it to them and teach them how to do it. And so my entire background was in kind of this consultative model, not counseling, but consultative, where I sit and kind of talk through your issues and help you develop. And so I had to figure out how to bring the copywriting piece, which I wasn't too familiar with the consultative piece, which I was pretty familiar with a lot of the digital stuff, which I had an emerging understanding of. And so I said, okay, I'm a shift from being a copywriter to being more in a consultant role. And I did that. And a lot, I've sat down and talked with a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of people unstuck. Is where I'm going with it. Or I've got them unstuck for them to move on to the next step and get stuck again. And that's fine because at least you've moved forward. And so you've bridged that gap and now you've moved on to the next part of learning. The thing I've always said is the scary part about learning is the more you learn, the more you realize there is to know. So I went into the consultative model and the pandemic rolled in and I'm like, ugh. This thing ain't going where it needs to be going. And so I figured maybe I do need to move into the more done for you services. And I transitioned over into doing more of the stuff that I know how to do, the nuts and bolts kind of things. And really it kind of robbing my joy of it. I like to do the done for you services as a bundle that's part of a development piece, a piece that's meant about teaching you about marketing and helping you kind of grow your marketing system. But if I'm doing all of it myself, I have a very hard time connecting with it because the ownership is mine and ends up becoming my thing. And it's not really, if I'm doing stuff for your business, it's not exactly my business. My business is to create the stuff for your business. But if there's a level of disconnection where you're not really involved in the process and you're just kind of, you just have, I'm just doing stuff that's hard for me to connect with. And that was the challenge. And so the part that I needed to get unstuck with was I feel like I need to go back to consultative model. Um, During the pandemic, I had somebody I really respect actually hire me out for a consultation. And initially it was going to be a free consultation, but he refused to let me do it for free. And that was kind of a seed that was planted that I'm going back to. And so that's what the unstuck sessions are. That's why I'm kind of talking about it. Paula, with the process, let's talk about what the process is. When you're saying you're stuck in the process, are you trying to figure out what a starting point is for the process, or are you stuck trying to figure out where you are along the line in the process? Because those are two very important distinctions. One, if you're stuck to figure out what a starting point is, then we got to look at what are the possible starting points and what are the starting points relative to what your knowledge is, if that makes sense. And then we could figure out the one that best suits you, and then figure out a way, a starting point that you're minimally comfortable with, and getting you started on the process. If it's somewhere along the process and you're kind of caught between two decisions, we sit down and talk about what the decisions actually are. Matter of fact, I just need you to email me. Shoot me an email so we can book a time, sit down and talk. Because that way we can do it offside here. The marketing piece. Okay. All right. So I'll be very general, but we've worked together, so we kind of know you kind of know the score on it. When we're looking at the marketing piece and getting unstuck with the marketing piece, and now we're talking about just running your own marketing and stuff. The most important thing is, what are your capacities? What can you do? Can you write? Can you talk? Because if you could do one of those two things, then that solves part of your problem. It solves the problem of what marketing vehicle you're going to actually use. If you're a writer, blogging is still making money. It establishes your thought leadership in the space that you're in. You can establish a following on social media with just your writing. And as long as you're giving out good information, you're going to start building up your credibility. And then you build up that credibility, and then you can leverage that credibility to get people to take a specific action. Normally that specific action needs to require some level of a conversation between you and that person to figure out if they're the right fit for your services. Not if your services are a right fit for them, but if they are a correct fit for your services. And that's how you got to view it. If you can talk, that gives you a couple of more options, because if you can talk, you can build a social media presence for free. There's podcasting, which I'm a big proponent of, as you can see up in the corner. What's the business with Brian and Brandy? We make it our business to get into your business. If you're a business owner, holler at us. We'd love to have you on the show. But if you can talk, you can podcast. Video and podcasting, YouTube and podcasting is kind of merging into one kind of thing, because video podcasting is taking over the landscape. So places like Spotify have a very strong video component into it. It allows you to establish some level of thought leadership in your space and kind of flex what your knowledge is, so that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. They can kind of get a gauge for what your thinking is and get a sense of what your temperament is just from your video content. And you put it out there without asking anything of them. And in the messaging, that's where you make it very obvious that you can do business with them. But one of the things I see too much, especially on like a social media platform or a place like YouTube, I see it on Facebook pretty frequently too, is people are asking too soon without really establishing what they know or sharing what their knowledge is. Give somebody a piece that's going to help change their lives for the better, and they're going to do a lot more. They're going to go an extra mile to want to work with you. But if you paywall it every single time and make it super contingent upon them doing business with you, they're going to disconnect from you quick. So don't be afraid to share what you know. because you know what you know, and only you can put it in the way that you'll put it, if that makes sense. So figure out if you can write or talk. Figure out what you're more comfortable with, and that's where we start. I'm not always the most comfortable in front of a camera, but it's it's getting a lot easier for me to jump in front of the camera and get to talking. A lot of times people, aren't really comfortable. Like sometimes when they get in front of a camera, they freeze up, they get uncomfortable. And that is a challenge for some people. I mean, it was a challenge for me. And what happens is a lot of times the camera will drain your personality if you're not prepared for it. You'll fall into being a super academic version of yourself that's really stripped of all your quirks and things along those lines, and idioms and the way that you talk and things like that. And people won't really connect with it. So figure out what you're comfortable with and start there. Some people would rather, just podcast where they can get on and talk about their knowledge about a specific topic. Look at it like this. If you're looking at getting into a YouTube and looking at getting into a podcast, the best piece of advice I could possibly give you is sit down and think about what your industry is, what your service is, what you're selling. Think of the 15 most common questions, and that's your 15 first show ideas. Podcasts don't have to be an hour long. They can be 15 minutes. There are plenty of podcasts I listen to that are 10-minute blurbs. But it's the consistency, it's the repetition. It's like going to the gym. The repetition is the thing that builds the muscle. Getting in there and getting the tonnage in and getting the weights in is the most important piece of it. Your form may not always be perfect. Some days you may be weaker than others, but as long as you're staying consistent with it, you will see. As long as you're staying consistent with the lifting and all the other stuff and some of the nutrition, getting adequate rest and stuff like that, you're going to see progress. It may not always be as fast, but it will come. And that's how you do it with social media. And that's how you do it with marketing your business. Figure out the thing that makes sense and jump in. And your first video is going to suck. Your second video is going to suck. Your 50th video might not be as good as your 100th video, but at least you're making progress moving forward. There are plenty of platforms that people are leveraging to get their voices out there. Like I said, I'm big into YouTube. I like Facebook. But I've seen people use, what's that one that everybody goes into? And I don't have an iOS device. Basically, it's like a big teen line group chat. People are making money off of it. And it's one of those things where they can jump in, have conversations with like-minded people, and absolutely crush it. So I'm trying to think of the name of it, and the name escapes me, and I just was talking about it earlier. But it's like a big, huge party group chat, and people have built entire platforms based on those. These services don't have to cost money. As you start scaling up and getting better at it, that's where the money comes in, and that's another piece where you can get stuck. Let's take another step forward. Are you stuck determining a financial commitment to a business idea? A lot of people are. Whether you buy this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment, whether you pay for the studio space or you don't pay for the studio space, pay for an office, not pay for an office. A lot of people get stuck in there and then they get hung up because they think that piece that they need to buy is the thing that they require. And then they end up stopping, essentially, because the piece that they don't have the money for it, or they don't, they're like, well, let me wait until I stack up the cash and allocate it. Okay. Just feel overwhelmed. All right. Shoot me an email, Paula. I want to talk. I want to sit down and have a conversation one-on-one so we can start unpacking and getting you unstuck with that. Because that's a piece where the overwhelm piece is very difficult. And when you feel overwhelmed, the most important piece is establishing a plan and sticking to it. And so we got to get you into the planning phase of what this marketing thing looks like for you and what your unique marketing plan is going to be and what you're going to follow. Um, that's the way to deal with the overwhelm. You bullet point it piece by piece, and so at each point you have a plan for every time you meet resistance. Every time you accomplish one thing, you have the plan. You have the next line, the next step scripted out. So all you got to do is just follow the marching orders. So let's get together and let's come up with a plan. So hit me up in the email. Shoot me an email. It's mail@isellwords.net. Let me go ahead and repost that here real quick. Give me 1 second. Where are we at? There we go. So hit me up at mail@isellwords.net, Paula, and we can sit down and kind of and start parsing that, because I think I know what you mean by it. And this one, me and you need to talk offline about it. So we talk about the financial commitment piece of it. A lot of times that is something that is challenging. People are saying, I would get started on YouTube, but I don't have enough money for a camera. Well, do you have a smartphone? Well, yeah. Do you know how many YouTubers that are making millions and millions and have millions of followers use their smartphone and like a $20 or $30 microphone and a ring light? And that's what they start with. And that's what they stay with. Sometimes the financial piece of it is just kind of sitting around and thinking about it. You know, you want to do training, you want to do personal training, but you can't afford a big huge space. Look around at some of these boutique gyms that are popping up and see what their rates are to trainers that want to train and utilize their facility. That way you have the access to a building, you kind of have a good price point, you know how much you need to charge to make a profit off of it. You can go and do your services, but you're not married to it. And you can pack up and go. That I made that mistake with one of my businesses, and I can speak from experience. Getting a building before we had the service fully defined was a bottleneck that set us behind a couple of years. It set us behind a couple of years because we jumped in too early, because we got so caught up with the building, we didn't think about what the service that we're going to offer in the building. And had we sat down and thought about the service that we're going to do in the building, we probably wouldn't have picked that building. We'd have gone somewhere else. But if you're caught between, do I need, you're a trainer and you need a space, sometimes you don't need to actually be able to afford your own gym. You need to be able to lease out space to somebody else's gym, because a lot of these gym owners are happy to lease out space for a rate. So start calling around and figure out a space to get into. There have been plenty of non-traditional gyms. I know locally, and this is for my Omaha peeps, so if you're watching somewhere else, just keep that in mind. I know in Omaha specifically, if you hit up in the Dundee area, there's a lot of office spaces in there that are converted houses that are considered kind of classic homes, but they may or may not be up to certain codes for people to actually live in or whatnot. They're not bad or run down or anything, but they're just old, and they've converted them to office spaces, and they're super affordable. And if you are a yoga teacher or somebody that's interested in, one-on-one work that doesn't require a lot of noise, you may be able to pop into one of these office spaces for a lot less than you can get a gym. And you can charge a lot more because of the intimacy of the location and the setting. And it's super one-on-one. If it's a one-on-one training session, as a rule of thumb for coaches and trainers, if it's a one-on-one session, it needs to cost a pretty penny, because one-on-one, the big names are charging a ton for one-on-one work. Individualized attention is a premium, and you need to charge like it's a premium. It's a premium product, it's a premium service. You need to be about looking at $500 to $600 a month. And I don't like to throw out solid numbers, but locally you're going to be doing one-on-one stuff. That's $500 to $600 a month to make it make sense for you. But that being said, there's plenty of little tiny spaces that are kind of untraditional that you can do your services in. And as long as it's appointment only, you're only limited with a certain class size and you're following the rules of the place you're renting out, you can actually get that business done. But a lot of times, getting unstuck is just having somebody that can sit down and reframe the way you're thinking. And so that's what I'm here to offer. You see the email scroll on the bottom. If you want an unstuck session, I can do them virtually. I can do them online. One of the things is for new clients. Now, returning clients, hit me up and we can sit down and talk. For newer clients, one thing I've realized is people value what they pay for. And so if I give you good information, I need to extract cost out of it, because if I don't extract cost out of it, you're not going to value the information. That is something that business has taught me. And it's something that consultants that are watching this need to understand. Free consultations are great. They feel great. They make you feel great. But a lot of times people don't really value the free aspect of it. And that's just something that how it goes. You see more value in things that you buy at high-end stores than you do at Walmart a lot of times. And the only difference is you paid more for it. We talked about it last week. Is a BMW a better car than a Honda? Does it cost more? So in a lot of people's minds, and a lot of consumers' minds, BMW are more valuable cars than Hondas. But I'll tell you one thing, a mechanic will tell you that a Honda runs forever. And they retain their value a lot better than a BMW, because those engines are built to last. A lot of times those BMWs get into that burning oil thing and you're just kind of stuck in a spiral. And that goes with a lot of these other cars that are just reskinned versions of other cars. But I'm saying all that to say this. Charge people for your time, and I'm charging for my time. So come armed with that knowledge. But I really want to sit down and talk about getting you unstuck and improving my value to you and demonstrating that I can get you unstuck. I've helped a lot of business owners and a lot of people that I know on Facebook privately hash out ideas and get their thinking in line, and getting them to the next step. And so that's what I'm offering. If you're interested, I'm going to scroll the banner, email me, mail@isellwords.net, and basically say, I want to get unstuck. That way we can schedule a consultation, get you on the books, and talk about it. Right now, I'm not even going to list the going rate, but it's not expensive, but it's not cheap either. And that's the real, because the time is valuable, and I think that you're going to get value out of what I've done. And people have paid me for that knowledge before. I don't really want to start handing it out. But if you just want to sit down and chat, or you want to ask a question on the podcast, that's free. And so you can email me at mail@isellwords.net. And if you have a question, or a marketing question or a business question, email that to us at mail@isellwords.net, and we'll make a podcast episode and answer your question on the air. So those are the two ways that y'all can hit us up and get our knowledge here. One, schedule a one-on-one consultation, or two, go ahead and hit us up at mail@isellwords.net. We can answer your question in a future podcast. Those are the ways that we have out there. Like I said, it's really just about getting you to the next point and getting you to the next part on the way station. That's really what it is. A lot of times you feel like, I just need this so I can get to my destination. But a lot of times reaching your destination, once you get there, you realize that the destination is unfulfilling. The journey is what mattered. The destination didn't matter as much. And so, and there's more value to be made in the journey, to be quite honest with you. So that's what I'm saying. Let's figure out how to get you on the next step of your journey. Let's get you unstuck. One of the big things that people get hung up on it. One of the biggest things about getting yourself unstuck is it lack of knowledge or lack of working experience? A lack of knowledge can be remedied by getting more knowledge. A lack of experience can only be solved by taking action. And if you don't take action, you'll never gain the working experience. Ain't a book in the world that's going to tell you how to do that better than actually going in, getting your hands dirty, and get started. That's how I got started with cameras. That's how I get started shooting videos and stuff. I didn't know anything about the camera piece of it. I had all the years in radio, but I didn't know how to do a camera setup. I didn't know how to do lighting, and I'm still learning, as you can tell. I'm still learning nuance and aspects of it, but I'm learning every day, and I'm getting the working experience so that I can realize where my bottlenecks are and address those bottlenecks. That's all you can do. So if it's a lack of knowledge, go get more knowledge. If it's a lack of experience, then you got to get started. So one last piece of wisdom, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but if you're working or doing a job right now and you have the itch to go out and do your own thing, you have all the knowledge that you know that you need. If they're paying you to do your job, you have the knowledge that people are willing to compensate you for. You don't have the other pieces in place. You don't have who you're going to serve in place. You don't know how you're going to serve them in place. Those things come with a level of thinking and experience. And maybe if you want to sit down and schedule an Unstuck session to figure out how to get started, to transition from, okay, I currently hate my job and I want to go start something, to I'm in the pre-planning stages of making a big move, hit me up. Let me know. We schedule an Unstuck session and get things figured out. Both me and Brandy are handling these. So if you feel more comfortable talking to her or talking to both of us, just let me know in the email. But that's all I got. I love the fact that you guys tune in. I'm gonna keep doing this on Tuesdays. Sometimes I may be at the house. Other times I may be at the office, depending on what we got going on. But I'm seeing some value in this. Hopefully I'm sharing some value with y'all. And if you have any questions or marketing or business questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an inbox, shoot me an email, and let me know. All right. Again, this is Brian with I Sell Words and the What's the Business podcast. If it don't make dollars, don't make sense. I will talk to y'all later. Peace.